Good afternoon, friends. Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name's Justin. I play guitar on songs in Nashville, and today I want to talk about this song I've been working on and what key it's in. I feel like if I ask this question to anybody that I make records with, they would have the same answer. And then a lot of people outside of town, I think, would have a different answer. And I guess it all depends on what your perspective is and what you think the final authority is on determining what key something is in. So I'm going to play the melody, or part of the melody that I had from before when I was putting some tracks down for this song. I'm going to play over this chord progression, and then I'll just sort of improvise for a little bit over it, and we'll talk about what key we think it's in. Here we go. Okay, what key do you think that's in? There's a couple of clues, right? First of all, the chords. The chords are A, E minor, G, D, okay? So you might be tempted to look at just the chords and say, hey, that's in the key of D, because D has major chords on 1, 4, and 5, so that's D, G, and A, and it has minor chords on 2, 3, and 6. That'd be E minor, F sharp minor, and B minor. And then it has a diminished chord on C sharp. But what we see are chords that fit really nicely into how the D major scale constructs triads, right? I disagree with it being in the key of D, okay? And I know this is going to be a little controversial, and that's okay. I guarantee you, if I asked anybody to listen to this, anybody I make records with, to listen to this and say, what key is that in? They're going to say, that's in A. I'm going to say, yep, that's in A. Now, the way that we talk about it in Nashville involves numbers, right? So, in the key of A, this would be a... It's a 1, flat 7, sorry, 1, 5 minor, flat 7, 4, all right? And the reason why it's a 1, 5 minor, flat 7, 4 in A and not a 5, 2 minor, 4, 1 in D is because of the melody, okay? I think everybody in Nashville comes from the perspective that the melody is king, all right? And what that means is every single aspect of what we do has to serve the melody, or you are actively working against the song, or at the very least not doing anything for it, okay? So this melody, just listen to the melody without the chords, okay? No chords at all. And I'll play the two-note voicings that I if you remember from the last video, I did a high and then a low harmony that was like a sixth below. So that's what this is going to be. it feels at rest here. That's A, right? The melody informs that for us. Now, you could come up with a different melody over those chords and, you know, change the key if you wanted. If the melody was something like over those chords, let's play a couple rounds of this with a totally different melody. And even though we're still going to hit an A that sort of rings out at the end, I think you might be able to hear over the changes that this would convince me that the song was in D, if the melody was something like this. That melody feels a lot more like it's in D, right? And maybe instead of going back to the A diamond, you had a big D chord ringing, right? But the other melody's in A. It resolves to A. It starts and ends on A, and it gets a really, because there is that flat 7 that gives us a 5 minor chord and that gives us a flat 7 major chord, it does have a cool different color getting there, right? And I know what a lot of y'all are thinking. You're thinking, major, but with a flat 7, that's mixolydian. Sure, yes. That's also something that nobody in this town would ever say. They wouldn't say, that's a mixolydian. They'd just say, that's an A. And then you would use the fact, you're filing away the fact that that color of the flat 7 is there. And so that's going to inform everything. Like, I'm not going to play over this and play... I'm not going to play the actual A major scale. And just because you say something's in A doesn't mean that you need to play the A major scale. The big disconnect here, I think, is that everybody who does this, at least here in town for a living, is always prioritizing the melody and thinking in terms of how to accent and support and lift the melody. So just because the chords fit into a different key doesn't mean that's the key of the song. If I were writing parts out for this, I would put the key signature of A on the staff. I know that sounds scandalous to a lot of you, and I would write not accidentals, but the natural, for which I guess if the accidental's in the key signature, I would write the natural every time I hit a G note, just to inform what we're doing here. We're playing in A, but there's a little bit of a twist, you know? And I think, I bet if I put this chart in front of somebody, in front of the same band in Nashville, and I wrote it as a 1, 5 minor, flat 7, 4 in A, and told them to play, it would be very different than if I just gave them a different chart that said 5, 2 minor, 4, 1 in D, and said just play. Because they're going to use the reference of what I'm telling them the tonal center is to create melodies or to create tension and to build and to establish the song or whatever they start creating. So it really is a big deal. And You know, I've talked about modes on this channel. It's funny, that video is still getting views. Somebody commented just recently and said, "Bro hears scales and checks out," with a like crying, laughing emoji, and I was like, absolutely. I mean, I know some genres are pretty defined by just shredding scales or just being very scalar, even in the melody. Like some classical music is like that. If it's not classical music, I kind of check out. I want to hear something interesting, and scales makes me think of practice, and practice makes me think of kind of being on autopilot. You know, I don't know. Yeah, if I hear scales, yeah, I kind of check out. That's right, and it's funny to me that somebody thinks that's completely ridiculous. So there's just varying tastes out there, I guess. So the other, back to the Mixolydian thing, the other thing that we don't do is think in terms of modes, because again, man, if you ask somebody what key this is in Nashville, they're not even going to say A major, they're just going to say A. Well, that's an A. And hearing the other chords, like we're all trying to come up with something that sounds good, like listening for things that we can play. And when like I said in that video a long time ago, what's it called? It's Modes Held Me Back. If I'm honest, modes held me back. Whew, so much controversy. When I start thinking in terms of a scale, then my playing becomes more, I don't know, a little more scalar, I guess. I'm not thinking A major. I'm listening. That's what it is. I'm just listening. I'm listening for what's going to come next that's going to fit over these chords and create the tension and the release and the melodic interest that I want. And so for me and everybody that I work with, we would just say this is in A, you know? If you say it's in D, it's totally different. Let me give you another example. I'm going to record real quick. I'm just going to record a quick track of some chords, all right? Now, and then I'm going to play a melody over it, and then I'm going to change the chords, but leave the melody the same. And then I'm going to say, this is still in the key. It's still in the same key. All right, so here's the first chords. Now here's a really just bonehead simple melody over that. It's G, C, and D, right? Key of G. Okay, here we go. Okay, so nobody's going to argue that that's in the key of G. Now what if I change the chords underneath what just happened? Let's see what happens here. Okay, so I know that I kind of overpowered the melody, but here it's the exact same melody. Let's just listen to this. Same melody. I just changed one of the chords. So instead of G, C, D, it's now G, F, C. And I think some of y'all would be tempted to say, well, that's in C now. And I am going to say absolutely not. All right? That's still in G. This melody everybody that I work with is going to hear that as a G melody. And whether we play, you know, like the part of it where I was playing a D chord, I'm kind of emphasizing an A note, right? The 2 of G. Well, it's pretty obvious when there's a D chord under it, I'm kind of playing half of a D chord as it is in the melody. But when it's an F, this A note, instead of being the 5 of the D, the 5 of 5 in G, which is the 2, it's the 3rd of the flat 7 in G, which is still the 2. Does that make sense? Same note, but it functions a little bit differently with the chord that is underneath it, right? There's a bit of a different color. So let's listen to that one more time. So, you know, if the droning D note is hanging you up, it doesn't need to. It could just be oh, let me get some volume. I mean, it could be a single note thing. Still in G, okay? So, to me, for all the people who work in this town, I would say the vast majority of us, if not 100% of us, are using our ears to be the final judge of how we're going to approach a song, what sounds good, what we want to play. We're listening as we play. We're not thinking and mapping things out as much as we're hearing and responding. That's how you get that magic of a band playing together in the studio. You're listening to everybody else. You literally cannot do your best if you're not listening to everybody else. I feel like I can't even do my job to begin with if I'm just over. It's like there's a group project and I'm doodling in the corner or something, you know? I have to be listening to everybody else. And for whatever reason, none of us think in terms of modes. None of us even think in terms of major or minor scales, right? Which are modes themselves. It's all melody. It's all melody. And for that, it's chord tones, right? So I have a melody here, and I changed a chord underneath it that share common tones, and that didn't change the key that melody is in. It's still in G, whether it's G, D, C, D, or G, F, C, F. It functions in the same way. It's just with the F chord, I think it's a little more rock and roll. So I would call that a 1 flat 7 4 in G. And the original way I had it with the G, C, and D would be a 1 4 5 in G. They're both in G, all right? The chords don't determine the key to me and to the people that I work with as much as the melody. The melody is king, not the harmony, right? Harmony is important. It's massively important. It's setting the stage for how we're going to tell our story or how we're going to create melodic interest. You don't even have to play exactly play chord tones in the chord you're playing over at the time. There's a tension and release to phrasing in and outside of the changes, right? And hopefully I demonstrated some of that at the beginning of this video. Anyway, all of this is just to say, y'all probably disagree. You know, most people probably think that that song at the beginning is in the key of D. That's fine. That's not how any of us think about it. Nobody. And as Guthrie Trapp said in another video recently, he's like, no one talks about modes. No one talks about Mixolydian or Lydian or Aeolian or Ionian or anything like that. When you're thinking in those terms, at least for me, it's so much harder to think melodically because I'm thinking of a scale and I'm thinking of a framework. I don't want to think of all the spots that are okay for me to play a note and then just try to come up with random permutations of notes in those spots. I want to play something melodic that moves into the next phrase, that takes a breath, that tells a story, right? Like I want to connect notes into sentences, into paragraphs, into a short story when I play a solo. That's the whole thing. And Nashville in particular has always been, country music in general has always been about storytelling. You know, all the classic American genres, you know, like folk, Americana, country. Jazz is a little bit different. Jazz is more, I don't know, jazz is more improvisational, and I would say my favorite players, you know, in that space are absolutely telling stories. But as far as being a harmonic and melodic support system for telling a story with actual lyrics, I think it's a little bit different. So anyway, fire away in the comments whatever questions you have. Push back, you know, maybe you can convince me otherwise, but I think I just I think for me and for everybody in this town, it's the melody. The melody's king. All right, chords are very important, but the melody determines where we are and where we're going. Have a good day. See you later.